Okay. All right, welcome back to WMMA Now with your host, Chuck Stevenson. I'm joined tonight by Knoxville, Tennessee, Strawweight, Emille King. Thanks for joining us, Emily.
Thanks for having me, Chuck. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. So for the audience members who aren't as familiar with you, when did you get started in martial arts?
In martial arts, I believe I started that when I was 6 years old. I had a lymph node removed from my arm, and they told me I could either do physical therapy or do a sport that required me to move my arm. And I had recently got kicked out of dance class. I was a little tomboyish at the time. And so my parents were like, here, go try this Taekwondo judo school with your brother, because he had aspirations of being a teenage ninja turtle. So started there, fell in love with it. And I really did Taekwondo and judo all the way up until I went to nursing school, went to college. It was my first time not doing any type of martial arts. And then I came home that summer and I was like, I really miss doing this. And that's when I found Knoxville Martial Arts Academy, and I've been there ever since. So.
And about how long ago was that?
Oh my goodness. I started at KMAA when my first year of nursing school. So 2011, summer of 2011. Okay. So that's about right. It's about 10-ish years ago.
Okay. So when did you decide to go pro, and like what was that decision-making process like?
Well, it wasn't much of a decision. I was actually booked for a fight in Kentucky at the time. It was another amateur fight, and it was the week of Thanksgiving, and I was visiting family in Indiana. I was still following the diet, still prepping and all that good stuff for my fight booked the first week of December. And coach called me, and I thought it was really weird. He doesn't normally call you, and he was like, hey, we have a pro debut for Invicta. Do you want it? And I just, was screaming my head off in the car, like, yes, I want it. Let's do it. So it really wasn't much of a decision. It was more of like an opportunity, and we jumped at it. I was planning on having a few more amateur fights at that time, but when Invicta calls, you gotta answer it. So.
Yeah, that's almost like a dream debut for Invicta. The biggest stage for all women.
It was an incredible experience. Obviously, I didn't win that fight, but it was good process, and just it really like lit a fire under me in terms of like what I wanted to do. That was the year that I had actually quit my job as a nurse. I was just like fully committed to like training, and that was again before I even went pro. I just knew as an amateur I really needed to devote more time to what I was doing, and I think the Lord kind of blessed that sacrifice in terms of like, all right, you said you want to do this, well, here it is, and maybe put my money where my mouth is, literally. And it's really paid off for me. Since then I've been able to pick back up nursing, but really been able to train full time like I like, and I think that's to my benefit.
That's really good. I mean, that's brave too, going full-time fighter before you even turn pro. I mean, not too many people.
It was in June of that year, and I had saved up enough money. I had budgeted out. I was like, I have enough money to get you through December. Like I'd saved up to get through Christmas. That was like kind of like my deadline in my head at the time. Again, it was all very providential because I got that Invicta fight the first week in December. So God knows what he's doing sometimes, like it was just good.
Okay. So you train out of Knoxville Martial Arts Academy. So not one of the bigger, more well-known gyms. So why don't you tell the audience what the environment there is like? Is it a big gym, small gym, big team? I know you train with a lot of other ladies there.
We do. We actually have so many female fighters, and they're active, and it's such an oddity, I would say. I have cross-trained at other gyms that obviously have female fighters and that kind of thing, but not to the degree that we have here in Knoxville. And I would also think that we are a big gym. We're not as well known, and I think that's mostly due to like location. Tennessee's not necessarily a hotbed of MMA like some of your like states out west like California or Arizona, those type of places.
The coastal gym.
I'm sorry, what?
The coastal elite gyms.
Yeah, we're not on the coast like they are, and so we're kind of out here on this like little island by ourselves. But we have the same amount of members, and we have big names at our gym. You know, we got Ovent St. Preux who's in the UFC, Shanna Young, she's in the UFC. Taylor Turner's fought on Bellator. I fought on Bellator. Several teammates have fought in Invicta, talking about that. Christina Ricker, Morgan Farmer, Olivia Parker's Bellator and Invicta. So, I mean, we have like a stock house full of fighters. It's just, I think people forget about us just because we're out here in Tennessee by ourselves.
Right. So, like I said earlier, you do have a lot of good female fighters there to train with. How beneficial is that for you to train with other women? Because I know, like, ladies, they come out of gyms where they're like the only, woman there, so they're just training with the guys all the time. And sometimes, I know, particularly, you hear this a lot out of the Asian gyms, where the guys won't, train as hard with the ladies, so it doesn't do as much good. So how beneficial is that to have like the ladies that you can go like, 100% sometimes?
I think it's super beneficial. I think it's a double-edged sword. So with everything, there's pros and cons to, every situation that you're in. The pros being that you're with another female body. Now, that's not to say that we're all in the same weight class and we're all, built different, just like the guys are. But women roll different, they fight different, there's different mentalities. But that's the thing about Knoxville Martial Arts Academy. We are very, very deliberative about our culture, and it's very female friendly in terms of we're not going to like not hit girls. I think one of my first days at the gym, Nick Gertz, one of my teammates who's also fought with Bellator and just one of our high-level pros, he said, "Hey, welcome to KMA. We hit girls here." And I was like, cool, this is a place for me. And since that day, I mean, it's held true. They will push us, but they also at the same time are good teammates. We have we're big on reading books and sports psychology and all that kind of stuff. And one of the big cultural impacts is the book called Legacy. And it's a book that talks about the All Black team, which is a rugby team from New Zealand. And one of their big rules is no dickheads. So that's the rule at KMA, no dickheads allowed. And that doesn't matter if you're a girl, like, if you bring that cattiness, that clickiness, that doesn't jive well with us either. So you got to play well with others and push them. That doesn't mean that we're going to, patty cake and coddle people by any means, because it is MMA. We are trying to, fight people, but at the same time, we are trying to take care of each other. It's very much that family mentality that's, again, I think is a rarity, and it's what's kept me in the sport. When the grind gets bad, I know that I have my family and my teammates and everyone that love and care about me at the gym, and I don't want to let them down. So as soon as I get done with my fight camp, or even during my fight camp, I'm trying my best to uphold the team standards and make sure that we're continuing our legacy, if that makes sense. So.
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, so someone else you train with is your husband, Jason King. And
yeah.
you even fought you haven't fought with him. You fought on the same events with him a few times, like more than one occasion.
Yeah.
What is that like? Because I gotta imagine that has to be very stressful, particularly when you're both cutting weight. I know, like, I wrestled years ago in school, and when I was cutting weight, I was irritable, to say the least.
Irritable, hangry, whatever you want to call it. It definitely is a thing. And you're right. Jason and I have fought together on several occasions, and we were actually, to my knowledge, the first married couple to fight on a major promotion. I think we did it in Bellator 238, and UFC put a married couple on 2 weeks later. So it's kind of nice to have that like little blurb. But if you ask Jason or myself, would we want to fight on the same night again? The answer is always no. It was just always circumstances and things that, opportunities that you can't turn down, that were like, well, we got to go, we got to do it. And there's pros and cons. So the pros are you're both dieting. So it's not like I have to cook 2 separate meals. We're both eating the spinach and the chicken and the egg whites. And so that part's actually nice in terms of like the weight cut. And I think our marriage is very healthy in terms of we don't get too snippy with each other because we're both in the gym all the time. And this is a dream that we both want. And it's nice having a spouse that truly, truly understands what you're going through because he's right there in the thick of it. But at the same time, weight cuts get a little bit complicated when it gets down to the water cut, which I'm sure you're familiar with wrestling. I think Jason did a podcast recently talking about weight cuts, and there was a time when we fought on the same card, and I had a little bit more weight to cut, so he had to go use a sauna, which he hates to do, and I needed the tub at our house to cut the water in the tub. So that coordinating of it all gets a little bit tricky. But you do it for the ones you love. And again, I don't prefer it. Jason says he'll never want to do it again, but I'm not totally opposed to it should the circumstances be right at the right promotion and all that good stuff. So it's challenging, but rewarding. I think especially that Bellator 238, that was like one of the most unique experiences I think you can ever have as a married couple, and I'm very grateful that I got to experience that with my husband of all people. So
yeah, it sounds like almost like a once in a lifetime opportunity to both fight together for Bellator.
For sure.
Okay, so your next fight is at Valor FC 87 in Knoxville on September 3rd against Danielle Hindley. So what do you know about Danielle?
I know that she is 4-2. She's a strawweight competitor. I think her last fight was, I believe, with LFA. But I know she's going to be a game opponent, and I'm not going to downplay that at all. So I know that she's going to come in ready, and I'm going to come in ready, and it'll be a good fight. So I'm really looking forward to testing my skills and seeing what I've improved on, and can I make it all click and come together in the cage like I need it to.
So do you train for specific opponents, or do you just train to fight your game? Because I know some fighters, they'll study their opponent, or their coaches will study their opponent inside and out, and they'll work out specific game plans. And whereas other fighters, they just go in and do what they do.
I think it's both. I wouldn't say I'm like strictly one or the other. If I had to pick a first answer, it would be I need to go in there and be Emille King. If I do what I naturally do and the things that I've trained to do for me, I think I'll be fine. But that's not to say that I don't study film. I look at film with coach, and because I mean it is important. But at the same time that I'm studying film on my opponent, I'm sure they're looking at film on me. So that's why you have to constantly evolve in the sport. You can't get complacent in any one area. You have to constantly improve from my last fight. I mean, I fought, it was just last month, it feels like. So I've already made adjustments, went back and looked at myself on film and be like, okay, what can I do better? What things were good? What things can I keep and retain? And then what things do I need to, sharpen up? And it's just that constant cycle of improvement that I think helps me to be a more well-rounded fighter in general. But that's not to say that I'm not going to look at film and watch my opponent and kind of have some expectation of what's coming. But again, when you get in the cage, it's chaos. It's always going to be different. So you can make the best plan in the world and try to know every detail, but when you get in there, it's never going to be what you think it was, So.
Okay. So moving away from fighting for a little bit, what makes Emille King away from the cage? Like, what do you do? What do you enjoy doing away from fighting?
Oh my goodness, that's a really hard question. I think a lot of my life revolves around the gym, and it revolves around fighting. Just because Jason and I we're married to the game, we're married to each other, but I think we have long-term goals of one day owning our own gym and seeing the sport continue. So a lot of it does kind of revolve around that. I keep saying that term, but that's the best words I have for it. Other than that, I mean, I have 3 dogs. I'm a nurse. I'm a wife. I'm not a mom yet, but maybe one day. I'm a daughter. So I just try my best to be a good steward of everything that the Lord has blessed us with in terms of taking care of the house and that kind of stuff. So just very mundane tasks other than that. So.
Okay. So I'm a bit of a foodie. So what is your favorite cheat day food?
Oh, I love food too. I actually really enjoy cooking. I should have, it's mundane to some people, but I enjoy baking quite a bit. So pretty much if I want something on a cheat day, I'll try to make it myself. We have what we call chunk week. It's the week after a fight. So you've been
Ah,
very disciplined and diligent about the diet for 4 to 6 weeks ahead of time. But that week after a fight, I don't weigh myself. I don't count my macros. I don't like do anything. I just have, just basically anything that I want. But my only rule is if I want it, I have to make it. So if I'm craving a chocolate cake, then that's what I'll learn how to make and try to make it the best that I can. But I usually, like I said, I have a sweet tooth. So I hands down, if you're a foodie, I'll have to send you some, make the best chocolate chip cookies you've ever had in your life. Like hands down, like no shame in my game. I make the best cookies. So
accepted. Okay, so besides your favorite cheat day food, and you mentioned your chunk week, what is your favorite post-fight meal?
post-fight meal.
Right.
See, to me, post-fight meal is different than post-weigh-in. A lot of times people are like, what do you eat right after weigh-ins? And it's very like not exciting. It's
Right.
just getting everything rehydrated and refueled, and it's still very bland and just fuel for the fight. But after
Right.
the
So
fight,
what's like your favorite meal to like either celebrate or sulk or whichever?
Jason and I, we have a ritual, I guess, would be a pizza party. So win, lose, or draw, we're always going to come home and have pizza. And I think that's just mostly because fights get out late, and that's usually the only food that's available. But
Right.
we
Nowhere
both
else
do,
to eat at.
yeah. So what is after wrestling and stuff? What would you usually eat? What was your favorite food?
Uh, I pretty much just starved all year.
You starved the whole year.
Pretty much like the whole wrestling season, I just starved for the
So
most
once it was done, what'd you go to?
pasta.
Mm, good stuff.
Yeah, because the my freshman year, the night before my first match, I ate pasta like an idiot, and then I missed weight, had to fight up a weight. So then
Oh,
after that, I never ate pasta during wrestling season. It was like the first thing I would eat afterwards.
so it's like the treat at the end.
Yeah.
All right.
So you mentioned, your faith in the Lord a few times. Now, I've seen a lot of fans, they wonder about this with fighters that are, openly religious. And they wonder, they always thank the Lord and, praise the Lord after they just got done, pounding someone's face in. And I think that's difficult for a lot of people who aren't maybe religious to understand. Like, so I guess what I'm asking is, how do you reconcile participating in such a violent sport with your faith?
That is such a good question. I'm actually really glad that you asked that because while I am a Christian and I am of faith, a lot of interviewers, they shy away from it because it gets too political or whatever. But if you're going to interview me, I'm going to talk about it because it's how I live my life, or try the best of my ability. How do I reconcile those two things with MMA being violent and me being a Christian? Would be, it's as simple as it's faith, and it doesn't always make sense. If it made sense, then it wouldn't be faith. But I do feel that I am called to this, because otherwise, to me, it wouldn't make sense to get in a cage and get locked in with there and try to get hurt or hurt somebody else. It wouldn't make sense other than this is what I feel like is my effectual calling, just as I feel that nursing is a part of my calling. And for whatever reason, God has led me on this path, and I just hope and pray that I can glorify Him in the process. So if that means victory, I hope that I'm able to show that graciously. If it's in defeat, hopefully I can take those defeats humbly and keep moving forward. I think I got asked earlier last week, they're like, hey, you were on like a 3-fight losing streak. What made you keep going? And, I don't think I answered that question appropriately at the time, but looking back on it, it was just faith. It was just being called to it. And that's the best explanation I have at the moment. But hopefully, as I continue on this journey, I'll have more words and more wisdom as the Lord sees fit to give me. So.
Okay. That's actually a good answer. Another thing I was thinking of, at the end of the day, it's also just a sport.
Yeah,
Like, you
it's a
might hurt
game.
them, but you're not like trying to permanently like damage your opponent. You're not trying to like literally kill them or anything. Like, you're both out there competing, and you're athletes. You're using your gifted talents, I guess you could say.
Yes, no, I think every skill that I've acquired is from, in my opinion, from God. And you're right, it is a game. And that's another reason why I love this sport. I'm so glad that you called it a sport, because it's like chess with your body. It's like, how can I use every part of me to like win this game? And to me, that like mental component of it all, I think gets glossed over so much in MMA because everyone just sees the violent aspects of it. But anyone who's wrestled or done jujitsu or boxing or kickboxing, anything, they know that there's like a mental side of it all. Like there's a definitely like a mental skill, which is why you study film, just like football players would, or basketball players, or name a sport. Like that's why I study film with coach, and that's why you read the sports psychology books, because it's a game and every part of you is involved in it.
Okay. So, back into fighting. Do you have like anywhere in the world that you really would love to fight at, like a dream fight location?
Oh, this list changes on the regular, but I think it's one of the fun things to kind of go through. I think anywhere in Asia would be really, really cool. Ireland is always on the top of my list. Really, anywhere that I've not been. I love to travel, and I love the idea of traveling with fighting, just to take in the new experiences and getting to see new cultures and see how other people live. I think is always beneficial because it makes you, one, appreciate what you have, and two, respect where other people come from and respect the different diversities and ethnicities and cultures that are around you. So, not that I don't love East Tennessee. I like to go out and explore a little bit, have some adventure. So,
Okay. So if any Asian promotions are watching, give Emily a call.
yep, I got my passport. I'm ready to go. Hit me up.
Okay. So, sidetracking off of that, do you have a dream opponent, someone that you would love to, I don't want to say like fight, someone you'd love to compete against?
That's, oh, you got really good questions. That's really hard. I think any of the high level competitors, anyone that is well known in the sport, obviously I want to work my way up to that. But competing at the highest level in any promotion would be a dream for me, to just be at that level, to be competitive, to be known with the greats. So obviously there's a lot of strawweights out there. I think it's a very, very deep division, and pretty much any promotion you're looking at. And yeah, just to get into the top 10 of any promotion, that would be like icing on the cake for me in terms of like being a competitor, to be known up there.
Okay. So, what are your long-term goals for MMA? I know you mentioned like someday opening up a gym with Jason, but as far as like fighting goes, what are your long-term goals?
Um, they're pretty vague, to be honest. Like I said, I want to compete at the highest level. So if that means Bellator opens up a strawweight division and they decide to rank it, then I want to be up there. If that means UFC getting in the top 10, eventually competing all the way up to the championship, that would be awesome. But I feel like those are very like status quo answers. Like that's what everyone, says, and everyone says that they want. But realistically, for me, like I said, Jason and I don't have children yet. I would like to be able to make enough money fighting to be able to afford a gym and the expenses that come along with that. And then also to be a stay-at-home mom, very mundane, not super glamorous, but I think that's what I'm called to do at the moment. So being able to, I've put that back on the back burner, which is a part of my sacrifice right now, is not having kids, because it puts a halt on so much of the momentum that I've made in this career, and I'm not willing to sacrifice that yet. And so when the time comes, I want to be able to, care for my kids the way that I want to. And I think fighting is an avenue for me to do that, to make good money and be able to support that. Not only that, but then not just financially, but when it comes to a gym, if you have reputable fighters on your resume, so to speak, I think that helps make the gym. And putting myself under that would just be super beneficial. Maybe put, like we talked about earlier, Knoxville's not big on the MMA scene, but maybe it would add to that and give us more of an MMA scene out here on this coast. So,
okay, makes sense. So you also kind of want to go from like fisticuffs to almost like a trad wife, kind of.
yeah.
That's admirable. I probably couldn't date a fighter. So.
Well, I think most of the fighters that I've met are genuinely just really cool people. I've not really met anybody that I'm like, I don't like you. You're, a terrible person. For the most part, because I think fighters are more familiar with violence and they are aware that it is an option, they're generally really nice people. So
Everyone I've met's been really nice. So
yeah.
I've been to 3 different Invictas and met all different fighters. So like everyone was just really cool and like laid back.
Yeah, super chill.
Okay, so that's all the questions I have. Do you have any? Where can people reach you on social media?
I'm on Instagram and on Facebook. I think Instagram's m.king MMA, and then Facebook's very similar to that. So Emilee, I think I'm the only one who spells it like that, Emilee, King, King, and that's me. So.
And any sponsors you want to shout out?
I have a long list, and hopefully they'll forgive me if I forget anybody, but obviously Knoxville Martial Arts Academy, Taylor Made Fitness, strength and conditioning coach, Taylor Turner, Frankie's Body Shop, also work out there. And then Main Event, they do my apparel line and t-shirts. Old Ben Franklin Motors in Oak Ridge. Skip Grill, you talked about cheat meals earlier. I should have given them a shout out. They have check out their Instagram page if you're into cheat meals and just some good food. Skip Grill's got you. And Knoxville Mortgage Brokers and a few others. So please forgive me if I left you off the list.
Okay, so Emille King, she's fighting at Valor FC 87 on September 3rd, and I believe you can find out where to watch at valorfc.com. So give it a watch. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you.